Thank you very much. My name is Mack Miller, candidate for Nevada Assembly District 5, and I'd like to thank you for being here. This is Veterans in Politics International's candidate endorsement interviews. We'd like to thank the candidates we have here today for State Assembly District 34, Anthony A. Laurie, as well as Janice E. Wesen. We'd like to thank you for being here. Also, we'd like to thank our panel members for being here as well, and most importantly, our sponsors. Ron Q for Clark County Treasurer, Michael Broadway Real Estate, Real Water, and Lakeside Business Suites. I'd like to remind everyone that I am Mack Miller, and I am not a voting member of this panel, and therefore have no bearing on whom the panel endorses in these elections. With that, we'd like to give both candidates 1 minute to let the panel know why they should be endorsing them for their race in Assembly District 34. We'd like to start. Whoever would like to start, I'm not going to be the one to make that decision either.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Anthony Laurie. I'm running for Assembly District 34. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Minnesota in the Twin Cities metropolitan area. I've also lived in Texas for a little over 6 years in the Dallas area. Worked in the telecommunications industry for several cable companies for 5 years. Came out here to Las Vegas, and now I'm a project coordinator for NPL Construction. That's the Southwest Gas contractor. The reason why I'm seeking the endorsement from Veterans in Politics International, I've heard a lot of great things about the organization. They do stand up for veterans, and they stand up for multiple other causes, including family court reform. That's something very serious that we all need to look into as legislative candidates. I just want to thank everyone for inviting me out here today to interview for the possible endorsement, and I will take any questions that you may have.
Hi, my name is Janice Wesen, and I have been in Las Vegas since 1991. I was here before that, but came back to raise my family with my husband of 31 years. Raised my family here. I have a business here. It's a veterinarian hospital. My husband's a veterinarian. And my baby's gone off to college, so I have found I've got some extra time to do what I believe politicians are supposed to do, and that's serve their community. So I am truly in this, not for a career, but just to be a neighbor and do the right thing. So that's my motivation. As far as veterans go, I think it's about time, or I think veterans are well overdue to get the respect that they deserve. I think anybody that does what you all have done and put your life on the line for us and our freedoms should be more important than perhaps, say, people that don't even live here legally. So I think it's about time that we recognize the work and the honor that you've done, and I appreciate that, and I personally thank you. Why I'm going to be good at it is because I'm looking at this from a business point of view, a problem-solving point of view, and how we can fix things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd like to open the floor for our first questions from the panel.
Hi, Michael McDonald, VIPI Legislative Council, Family Civil Liberties Union, Restoring Freedom, Reforming Family Courts, and Positive Minds Global. So I've got a question as to one of the root causes of so many of society's issues of anxiety, depression, mental illness, criminal history, drug use, sex trafficking, mass shootings, all occurring from the breakdown of our family. Our family court, we have a war going on between our family and our family court system, stripping good parents from their children. I ask if elected, would you guys support equal parenting legislation? Would you support reform for our family court and our criminal justice system? As we also have a lot of veterans committing suicide, over 22 a day. When they come back from war, you have PTSD or you're a killer, they're stripped from their children, and it's one of the most soul-ripping processes that a person could ever experience. Say that we have 25% of the world's incarceration rate, yet we're the land of the free. We have our prison systems being completely filled up, our jails that are being completely full, and for-profit systems. So if elected, would you guys work on reforms for family and criminal law?
And I've heard you ask these questions before. Frankly, I find it's a shame that we even have to discuss whether we have equal parenting rights. I mean, we talk about, the single person raising their family, and I've always said there's always two. There's just always two, and there should always be two. So as far as equal parenting, of course. Now, obviously, I don't know what legislation's on there. I have to look at, because when you look at the legislation, as we all know, you have to look at what the intended objective is and make sure that it reaches us to where we want to go. So yes, I support as far as anything goes equally. Again, I can't understand why we even have to have that discussion. As regards to some of the issues you're talking about, I mean, you talked about a great deal of things, and I talked about mental health and you know, the PTSD. I mean, it's all, we need to fix it. We need to help the people and help them and come up with the correct solutions.
I also agree that we need to focus on the reforms in the family court as well, as far as splitting families up. Sorry.
No, it's fine. He wasn't, sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good, Troy. We do need to fix the system in there. I have talked to numerous other individuals that have been a party or a defendant or plaintiff in the Clark County Family Court system, and I do see a lot of families being split up. I've also heard various accusations of bias in the system, and I believe we need to address that at the legislative level, whether it be an independent panel or a legislative panel. We'd have to take a closer look at that, but overall, we do need to focus on the family court system. As far as the other issues at hand, such as the VA, I think we can do something at the legislative level that would help our veterans out in a more efficient manner. Ultimately, it is also a federal issue where the federal government needs to address it, because VA clinics and centers across the country have had a lot of controversy on them regarding veteran suicides, veterans being turned away from the care centers, being turned down for care in general. And I think we can do something at the state and federal level regarding that.
Okay, so there seems to be a big assault on the Constitution, specifically in the Second Amendment. We have a current person running for governor who is politicizing a lot of things that I don't believe, as a native of this great city and state, should be politicized. So my question to you is, one, do you support the two-way? And two, if he does happen to get elected and attempts to push through legislation to ban any kind of gun, in which he calls assault weapons, which I think is a joke, would you support that?
Troy, I'm gonna make this real simple. I oppose any infringement on our right to bear arms. I oppose banning any type of weapon because a certain group deems it unnecessary for us to have. The Second Amendment is like a big stone, and various groups on both sides of the aisle start chipping away at it. This is one of the arguments right here. We need to ban assault weapons. That's a chip off the block. They're gonna keep going further and further and further until that rock turns to rubble. Recently, I was A-rated by the Nevada Firearms Coalition PAC. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I will stand up for it, blood, sweat, and tears.
So I'll say ditto, but I will add on to that. Yes, I support the Second Amendment. I love our country, and I support the U.S. Constitution. And I do agree that when you start whittling away, we start eroding what our foundation is. We don't have a gun problem. We have a problem as far as the people using the guns. We have to focus again on what the actual problem is. We have laws in place that already make certain things illegal. We need to enforce the laws we already have instead of creating more laws that only the good citizens are gonna follow. So that's what I would support. So of course I support the Second Amendment. Thank you so much.
Steve Sanson Jr., U.S. Army. My question to you both is, because everybody has different motivations, different reasons for running for office, and if elected, what is the very first thing that you would do or step up to try to rectify as far as your elected seat?
You asked what our motivation was. So I'm going to tell you, I'm not a politician, so I am brand new at this game. I have literally been raising my family and running a business for the last 30 years. But I've always been watching what's going on, and I've always seen, you know, people make promises, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then they go up to Carson City or DC if you want to talk at a federal level, and I wonder what happens to them. So to answer your question, what am I gonna do? I've got so much to learn. There's so much legislation and laws out there. But what I care about is that we do the right thing. And my motivation to do this is, again, I'm just gonna say, I'm a citizen. And I think it's time we had more regular citizens that are up there and fighting for us, that are down here working and running our lives.
One of my motivations for running for Assembly District 34, primary reason, the people. The people I've talked to regarding the issues. One issue I care deeply about that I will fight for first and foremost is education. We've had politicians up there in Carson City promise no ESA, no funding. Baffles my mind as to how the education savings accounts aren't funded to give parents and students a choice of whatever education they best see fit. I see a lot of broken promises in Carson City regarding taxes. Notoriously the commerce tax, which is affecting businesses a great deal, especially the small businesses, where it can determine whether you're in the black or in the red regarding your profits. I see our Second Amendment being attacked at Carson City as well. Most notably, some of the legislators also want to raise the age to purchase any firearm to 21, which contradicts my belief because you're an adult at 18 years old. If you're responsible, you should be able to own a firearm. So education, Second Amendment, and ESA funding. And I will promise right here, right now, no ESA, no funding. Hold me to that. Or no, excuse me, no ESA, no budget.
Along those same lines of education, I mean, we are 51st, according to the last articles I've read. So I want a two-part question. One, what would you like to see changed within both, the school district, but it's really at the state level? What would you like to see changed? And the second thing is, the Clark County School District has the highest disciplinary rates of expulsions and suspensions of kids, and there's no due process for families. So unless you can afford to hire attorneys, you don't get due process. So would you support having a citizen review board similar to what you have for police officers when they're involved in shootings, for teachers and for administrators that are abusing their power?
Sorry if I...
No, go ahead, Chris. Thank you.
I see a lot of issues going on within, most notably, the Clark County School District. From my perspective, I see it as an administration issue. You can throw money at whatever problem regarding education you see, but money doesn't solve the issue. You need to hold the administrators accountable, because once the funding trickles down to the administration, they do what's necessary on their end, supposedly, and then by the time the schools and the teachers and the students see it within the school, it's a small fraction of the pie that they were supposed to get in the first place. So I do agree with a concept of a citizens advisory board of some sort regarding the school teachers, like with law enforcement. It's a check and a balance on both sides. It holds the school district and teachers accountable regarding the education process.
So how to solve the education problem? I'm going to repeat that. That's what the question was. So I'm a business person, and I do look at money and budgets. That's sort of what I come to the table with. And when you look at the education system, the money that we spend as a state on our education system, it's unbalanced. The bulk of it is over the administration. I don't believe we need more money in the education system. We need to get it to the right place. And we need to empower the people that are actually working with the students, and that would be the teachers, and more the boots on the ground people who are in there doing that. And some of that is going to be through the ESA situation. As far as, so I'm not a politician, remember this? So you surprised me on this one, that we have the highest rate of expulsion. So I wasn't aware that that was an issue. I guess, so before I could even tell you what I would do about it, I would have to find out, well, what's the root of everything? Because we're too often try to come up with a solution without really finding out what the problem is. So I would certainly look at anything, because we need our kids and our future educated and educated well. And that is something I care very much about.
Lena, Ocasio, Air Force veteran and real estate broker here in town. As a victim of domestic violence, I've been negatively impacted by the fact that we do not have Marcy's Law here in Nevada. I understand it is going to be on the ballot this year. Do you support Marcy's Law, and why or why not?
You can start.
So Lena, I used to be on the board of the Safe Nest here in Las Vegas, Nevada, a wonderful organization. And so I support anything to eradicate that, as far as that goes. Marcy Law, again, it's one of those things, why don't we already have that? Why don't we already notify people when that comes out? So yes, I would support that. Anything to protect people from people that are gonna hurt the other people, it just seems like common sense to me.
I'll also touch on that. I support Marcy's Law 100%. I want it to be passed. If you don't want it passed, you're basically for the criminals, because you're giving them the rights that victims don't have. And the victims should be entitled to the same equal rights that the criminals have.
Robert Foust, U.S. Army, VIPI member. Mental health is a big problem in today's society. What would you do in your district to encourage or to expand mental health care out in your area?
I mean, it's almost do that, expand, find out again. I'm not looking to create more programs when we get up there, but look at where we have our funding and where we're putting it. And mental health is an issue that touches everyone's lives, and it touches every citizen's lives. So I would support any program that would look at what the actual root of this problem is and help it, because it could have to do with the drug situation that we have going on, and it has to do with the breakup of the families. I mean, mental health is such a big, large umbrella. So we have to look at what's done, what's working, and make it work for our community.
Mental health affects many people. A lot of the mental health patients, good deal of the diagnoses are not accurate. They're diagnosed with one mental issue when they may have another mental issue or multiple mental issues. I think at the state level, we could talk to health professionals, doctors, physicians, psychologists, team up to tackle these issues a great deal. That way we can, as legislators, go back to our communities and offer resources to people who need it for mental health situations.
Lena, Ocasio. Another question regarding the family court system. There's a lot of corruption here in Clark County, particularly in the family court system. I know we touched on it a little bit. There's a lot of corruption when it comes to attorneys that make political contribution to the judges' campaigns, and even litigants that actually make campaign contributions as well. So when two parties are going into the courtroom, one might not have a lot of money to make these political donations or the money to afford a certain attorney. So it depends on, a lot of people say, what judge you have and what attorney you hire and how much you're paying. So what steps will you take in the legislature? What type of legislation would you like to see passed to stop that kind of corruption that's going on?
That's a very good question, Lena. We'll touch on what I discussed before about family court. There is a lot of what you said going on in there, not just financially by donations, but I also see personal relationships between the litigants, the attorneys, and the judges. I see a lot of personal bias going on to the point where in some cases, they just show up in the courtroom and the judge immediately says, okay, I've already read your case, I already have a decision. That's not fair. You're not giving one party the chance to discuss the issues in an open courtroom where all can see. You're basically just giving the other side free rein and just predetermining the decision before you even litigate it. At the legislative level, I believe we need to, whether it's an independent board or one that's based in Carson City at the legislative office as a committee or so forth, I believe an advisory board would do some good for these court cases in the family court system. I'm not going to name judges, I'm not going to name certain parties. I'm just going to say that for the most part, they try to do what's needed, but you have those groups of litigants and judges who have been accused of being biased from the very beginning, and we need to address this. It's a serious issue.
Lena, I would support anything that has checks and balances put in place, that makes sure that we're not putting people in front of things, because there's corruption everywhere, unfortunately. I mean, that is the unfortunate thing. And the only way we can fight corruption is by having checks and balances and making sure the good people are there.
Last question from the panel.
I'd like to know what your stance is on the state of Nevada being involved in or legislating cybersecurity practices for businesses, because it's a major issue nationwide as well as here in Nevada. And from the businesses I interact with, I know that their protection posture is very poor. Europe has laws that severely punish businesses for not protecting their customers' data. California has some stuff. I mean, Nevada has some wishy-washy things. So I'm just curious, what your thought process is on it.
Because I own a business. And I'm going to tell you, every time they go up there and make laws and rules and regulations, and then I have to go and hire either somebody to help me figure out what to do, and all we want to do is save the pets out there and take care of animals. So I don't support anything that adds more burden onto the small business person. Now that doesn't mean I wouldn't look at it and say, well, what is the benefit and what is the short-term and long-term outcome? But off the top of my head, please, no more regulations on the backs of a small business owner that just wants to do their service.
I'm forced to agree with Janice. We don't need any laws or regulations to further regulate businesses in general, especially small businesses. But a solution to the cybersecurity issue, as legislators or the legislature as a whole, we should be able to go back to the small business owners, corporate owners, whatever type of business, and determine what commonalities they have regarding cybersecurity issues, see if there's a correlation, and go from there off that. We need more cooperation between the government and businesses. That doesn't mean creating more laws to regulate business.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wesen and Mr. Laurie, both running for State Assembly District 34. Thank you for being here. We'd like to also thank our panel for being here today as well. And of course, our sponsors, Ron Q for Clark County Treasurer, Michael Broadway Real Estate, Real Water, and Lakeside Business Suites. I've been your moderator, Mack Miller, candidate for Assembly District 5. And I'd also like to remind everyone that I am a non-voting member of the Veterans in Politics panel and have no bearing on the endorsement process. Thank you all very much for being here.